Northwestern Indiana Regional Plan Commission is now called to order, and we will have the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And actually, before you all sit down, I'm going to ask you to please remain standing. That one of the things that has been a passion of mine, and one of the platforms that I think is very important to continue to convey to everyone, is the importance of physical activity in our daily routines. That about 70% of all healthcare spending goes towards managing chronic disease, almost all of which can be prevented if you include around 30 minutes of physical activity in your regular routine. So when I have the opportunity to speak with a group publicly or lead a public meeting, I like to then go through and just knock out a couple of those minutes. And so we're going to do something just really simple, that we're going to do a little calf exercise. So you can just step up on your tiptoes. If you're wearing heels like I am, it's not that great of exercise. But you get just a little bit of a, you just come up and down, then you get a little bit of a calf stretch in there. Get some blood flowing. Very good. Go ahead and have a seat. Thank you very much. I'll turn to Mr. Warner for the appointments to the NERC board.
Thank you. Attorney Hollenbeck couldn't be here this morning, but we've got several appointment letters just given to the record here. Donald Sandberg has been appointed from the town of Winfield. Jeremy Rivas from Porter County Council. Evelyn, Patty Arnett from Kingsford Heights. And also Thomas Schmidt, Tom Schmidt, of course, from Schererville, have all been appointed to the NERC Commission or reappointed as the case may be.
Thank you very much, and welcome back. That then takes us to approval of the minutes from the January 15th meeting of the full commission. All members received a copy of the minutes in the packet for today's meeting, so I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions to the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes as submitted, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? The minutes are approved. And then I'll turn it over for an introduction of Mr. Nolan.
Very glad to have Mike Nolan with us here today. He's the, I'll say newish now at this point, general manager for NICD, for the South Shore Feeder Line and all. And he hasn't had an opportunity yet. He's met a lot of you, but he hasn't had an opportunity before the NERC Commission, so I thought it would be a great opportunity for him to meet you all, and you get a chance to meet him. And I will just do a quick editorial here. Had the privilege of joining Mike and John Parsons over here from NICD also for the inaugural run of the Sunrise Express on Monday, which I would say is a huge success. Ridership was great, and I'm sure he'll talk more about that, so I won't steal his thunder, but just congratulations on what you're doing. And Mike's just going to have an opportunity here to have a discussion with you and share what NICD's about and introduce himself. So, very good.
Thanks, Ty. And I appreciate the opportunity to come here today to address this board, because I think you guys play a vital role in what we want to do. I really want to have a very close working relationship with the commission. I know that we've got Joe, who is a regular attendee here, and I want to make the partnership even stronger. 6 months now into my new life as a Hoosier. I did actually spend 4 years up the road at University of Notre Dame, so I had some prior experience in the area and actually rode the old South Shore, so I know where we've come along the way with the railroad. I rode the old shake, rattle, and roll, or whatever other terminology was used for the old rail cars and the line. And I am fortunate that the state and the leadership and folks like John and Joe and Jerry Hannes spent the time to build the railroad with the leadership of our board. And we have Dave here, who knows the painstaking efforts that have gone into restoring the foundation of the infrastructure that had been avoided for so many years. And it's a case that we're all facing today with our infrastructure concerns, that if you let it go too long, the money that it takes to rebuild it is so much more than what it would have taken if we had just invested to keep it up along the way. But I'm fortunate that I'm inheriting a railroad with really good bones. There's really good structure there, and we have the opportunity to build on it. And that's really important, because what I've seen, and what you know all too well, is that we need to unlock this region's potential. It is so, there's so much potential here. We have the opportunity for our residents to travel to the Chicago market and get those higher paying jobs. 40% I've heard the number on average over what individuals can earn here. But there's difficulties in getting there. And one of the things I've heard since I've been general manager is we need to get to the city quicker. We need reduced travel times. We need more trains. And so I've heard that over and over again. So what can we do? Well, we have the Westlake project, which is in its draft environmental impact stage, and we're working to serve that area of Westlake County that's growing and capitalize on the opportunity to not only continue that growth, but attract new riders to the area, new people to the area, new businesses to the area. We project somewhere in the vicinity of 5,600 to 6,000 rides a day that will ride that line. We're down right now in Indianapolis. The RDA is partnering with us to seek state funding that will match the all-important Federal Transit Administration dollar. The federal government will match 50 cents on every dollar. 50 cents. It'll match us 1 for 1 on every dollar we provide. So we need a 50% local match in order to qualify for a federal New Starts project. And so that's what we're working on right now down in Indianapolis, is trying to secure that funding. It's a 9-mile extension to Dyer. The economic benefits, the analysis is very strong that we'll have a 2 for 1, $2 for every dollar we invest, return on investment from the Westlake start. So we're excited about that project. But that's not the only thing that we're working on. And as Ty mentioned, on Monday we kicked off the first new express train on the South Shore line in 20 years. It's been 20 years since we've added an express train. And it's the culmination of a lot of work, a lot of effort. The leaders of that group were a team from South Bend who see the importance of connectivity to Chicago. Now, South Bend's 90 miles away, and yet they're not a commuter area, but they see that what's vital for their growth is that connectivity to Chicago. And our fastest train during the weekday period was 2 hours and 36 minutes, and that wasn't connecting them. And so they've been after the South Shore, pushing to get faster service. And they were looking at whether Amtrak high speed was the answer, but they looked at us. And so we started the Sunrise Express on Monday. The train will depart out of South Bend at 6 a.m. and it's under 2 hours. We're shaving 41 minutes off the time from South Bend to Chicago. Their Chamber of Commerce calls that a game changer for them. They see that when they want to attract businesses to their region, they see the ability to say that you live and work here, but if you have business meetings in Chicago, you're connected. If they're trying to attract a business to come there, they're going to say, yeah, you can go back and forth easily from South Bend to Chicago, which is one of the major economic markets in the country, and they're not in the world, actually, and they're not done. Actually, the goal for the South Shore Railroad is simple. It's 90 minutes from South Bend. Because if we get 90 minutes from South Bend, we get 60 minutes from Michigan City, we get 47 minutes from Dune Park and Chesterton, we get 40 minutes from Ogden Dunes, and 35 minutes from Gary, and so on. And what we do then is that we then offer the kind of service that is over in the Chicago area at Metro. And we then become a true suburb of Chicago, and that's going to attract the growth. It's going to keep the young people that I've heard about, the exodus of the young people here in the region. It's going to keep them here. We're going to retain that population, and we're going to attract those sought-after millennials who are living the life in downtown Chicago, and then they're deciding where they want to live. And I have to be honest with you, when my wife and I were downtown Chicago, we didn't look over here to northwestern Indiana as a viable option. I looked at the Metra schedule, and I looked at the service that was being offered, and the South Shore wasn't offering that kind of service. But if we can offer that kind of service, if we can have communities with 2 or 3 express trains in the morning, and in the morning rush and in the evening rush, now you've given the opportunity for someone who is looking to buy that first house, and they're saying, hey, I can get more here in Northwest Indiana. I have lower taxes, I have lower cost of living, I have Lake Michigan, we have so much to offer, but we need to unlock that potential, and the South Shore has got the opportunity to be a part of that. We really do. Now, we've got a strategic plan. Mr. Parsons, I think, brought a number of...
Well, pass these out. There's, I think, 15 copies?
Yeah.
So we can send out links to everyone to this online, so you can, if you don't get a physical copy, you can access it.
So last year, Dave and the rest of the board members passed a strategic business plan. And it's got the Westlake in it. It's got the basic core capacity, state of good repair, make sure that we maintain our parking lots and our stations and our rail cars. But it also has the key ingredients for our growth. And what we need, and the things that we need to do to get there. To get to that goal, which is that 90 minutes, those express trains, unlocking the potential for added ridership and attracting people to the region. And I'll just tick off some of the key things. It's we're at the airport where it's our terminus in South Bend. We're on the west side of the airport, and it takes us 16 minutes or so to go about 3 miles. It's almost like a carnival ride. We go so slow. We've got to get to probably have to get to the west side of the airport or some other location. We've analyzed the west side of the airport, and we can probably cut off 10 to 12 minutes off of our schedule just by relocating there. In Michigan City, we go right down the middle of the city. I'm sure you've all seen it. We crawl through Michigan City. We're embedded in the street there. That costs us probably 7 to 10 minutes off of our schedule. If we can have double tracking through Michigan City and get out of the road bed, we can save another 7 to 8 minutes there. We're a single track railroad, folks. What that means is if we have one fault, if one train gets a flat tire, if we have one minor issue, everything backs up and everything stops and nothing goes around it. We need to double track. We need 2 tracks. Right now we have double tracking from Kensington in Chicago all the way through Tennessee Street in Gary. From there, we have little bits of double tracking towards Michigan City, but we need that whole section to be double tracked. And then we'll put what's called high-speed crossovers. So what that does is allows a train that is following a slower train to move over to another track, pass it, and then come back to its initial track. And it allows trains coming back from Chicago. If we're heading, if we have trains going to Chicago, we have trains from Chicago on the other track. We right now stop trains from going one direction in the single track territory. They have to wait till another train passes it, and then they proceed. And if anything goes wrong, if there's a slightest blip in the schedule, we take a train delay because we don't have the flexibility that they have across the border over in Illinois. The Burlington Northern line has triple track. They have 3 tracks, that trains can go, they can go from one track 1 to track 2 to track 3, back to track 2. If they have issues, they can engineer, they can railroad around them. In many cases, we don't. We need to put in high-level platforms. And it's as simple as, if you've ever been to Dune Park, when the people get off the train, they walk at grade, right across the train, right onto the platform. In many of our stations, we have low-level platforms, and we funnel everybody in the train to one small little area, and they go down the stairs. It's a very slow boarding process. We estimate at places where we have low-level boarding platforms, it takes as much as 3 to 5 minutes or more if we have a heavy loaded train to disembark, to alight the train. When you have high-level platforms, it's about 30 seconds. It's all about reducing the time out of the schedule. We need more equipment. In order to run these trains, we need more equipment. All of these things go into the puzzle to make this happen. It's in the strategic plan. What do we need? Well, we need some capital dollars to make it happen. But to do that, the next part of this phase is, and what you'll start seeing in our transit improvement plan, is that we're going to be shifting some of our money to actually pre-engineering, paying for engineering up front before we know we have the funding to do a project. And that's a little different than we've done in the past. Because what we've heard from the federal government is they're going to get out of the engineering business. They're going to reduce their funding for local states and local governments to pay for engineering. That's going to be our skin in the game. What the federal government wants to pay for is shovel-ready projects. They want to be funding things that we build. So what we're going to have to do is do the engineering. So you're going to see money in our transit improvement plan for the double tracking and a high-level platform at Miller. You're going to see money in our plan for high-level platform in Ogden Dunes. You're going to you're seeing it for our bridges. We're going to have to come up with significant dollars, and we're going to spend those dollars with the hopes then that we can turn around to the federal government, and they have programs. They have Tiger grants. They have core capacity programs. They have small starts. So there's pots of dollars that the federal government has for these improvements, but you got to do the engineering first. Michigan City, South Bend realignment. Those things are going to be some high-ticket engineering costs for us, but we're going to have to make that investment in order for us to be ready to put forth our requests to the federal government to do these projects. Otherwise, the rest of the states are going to be there with their projects ready, and we're not going to have the opportunity to compete for those federal funds. So that's a little bit about sort of what we're returning our attention from our capital program and our capital needs. The last thing I want to mention is that we're going to need probably a local source. In this plan, it's a couple $2 billion. There envisions the need to develop some kind of local funding mechanism, whether it's state or county or whatever it is. I come from, in Illinois, where the RTA is funded through a local sales tax. I'm not a policy person, but there's a dedicated stream of revenue there in Chicago area to fund the transit needs. Something is going to need to be done down the road to grow the transit if we want to make this plan a reality. One of the things we need to do is to help us sell that is that I'm working right now on a draft schedule, a what-if schedule. If we had everything, if the Christmas tree was all lit up and we had everything we wanted, what could that schedule look like? Because we've got a lot of excitement out of the Sunrise Express. We've gotten a tremendous amount of press, a lot of good feedback from our riders. John's inbox is overflowing with folks who are saying, thank you, this is great. Even people who are saying, boy, this doesn't actually meet my schedule, but I like what you're doing, and please add more express trains. So what we need to do, all politics is local, right? when people open up the schedule, they're going to look to see, does it match my needs? Does it match my schedule? Does it give me the opportunity to now go after a job in downtown Chicago that maybe I didn't have the opportunity before? And this one express train that we've added may not do that. But what we need to do is put together a schedule, a draft schedule, that shows, well, if we make all these improvements, this is what the schedule could look like. Here are the rush hour trains that are out of Miller. Here's what it could be in Michigan City. What does 60 minutes turnaround for Michigan City mean? Well, you can take a 6 a.m. train into the year at 7, 6:30, 7:30, 7:30, 8:30. That's the kind of thing that's going to translate to our residents. Me standing up here and getting all excited about double tracking and high-level platforms, that doesn't translate well. It's not going to generate the excitement that people are going to need in order to support some kind of local funding initiative. But I think coming up with a schedule that translates what the strategic plan can do, what it can mean for our communities, I think that's one of the keys that we need to focus on. And one other thing I do want to mention, there's been a lot of discussion about the Sunrise Express. We also improved our train out of Michigan City. Train 106 now runs express from Michigan City to Hammond, non-stop. We've shaved approximately 6 minutes off that schedule. There's probably a little more time that we can take off that schedule as well. We're going to be looking at both our Sunrise Express schedule and our 106 schedule, as well as Train 11. We have an express train coming back out of the city at a little before 4. After 6 months, we're going to look at those schedules and see what actual traffic, real-world experience is done, and we may be tweaking the times just a little bit. But it's this is our future. This kind of express service is where we need to be, and we think it's one piece of the puzzle to unlocking the region. So, I thank you for the opportunity to come here today, talk about our schedules. Yeah, Ty, please pass those out. We're looking. The Sunrise Express is a pilot train. It's a 1-year pilot. There's some cost to adding it. We estimate that we probably need 80 to 100 new riders, not people are shifting from one slower train to our faster train, but new folks to the region or to the service in order to make this a success. If we get 200 riders, it's a grand slam. If we get more than that, then my friends down in Indianapolis who ask, how come we're not making a profit? Then I can say, well, we're making a profit on this one train. So thank you for having me here today, and I'm happy to entertain any questions.
I just had one quick comment. You mentioned the additional the Sunrise Express and other ideas that you have, very good ideas to increase job opportunities and productivity in the region. We're very appreciative of that. But in the Duneland community, Chester, Porter, Burns Harbor, we're also very interested in the increased tourism traffic that we'll be able to pull off that express train right at Dune Park. And we rely on a very robust visitation during the summers and fall and summer and winter, really. And look forward to that having an effect economically on our area as much as the employment angle of it. So that's very good. We're expanding our trail network so that you can get to any of those communities or the dunes or anywhere around there. And hopefully with the bikes on trains things, if we get that going, we're going to really be very much improved on our tourism business. So we appreciate that angle of it as well as the economic development angle. Thank you.
Thank you. John Parsons and I have had a lot of conversations about what we need to do to promote the sort of that reverse commute, really, from getting those people from Chicago over here. And we see there's some obstacles we see, and when folks get off at Dune Park or Miller or Ogden or wherever up and down Michigan City, up and down the line, how do they get from the train to those destination areas? And so we're open for discussion on those. Bikes on trains, I'm all in favor of it. What we can't do is take seats out of revenue trains. We need more equipment, and so that is, I think it could be a home run if done right. But we need to figure out how to get the people, excite people from that huge population base in downtown Chicago over to the region. And it's a great opportunity for us from a ridership standpoint.
Maybe some further discussions could be held between those municipalities. We might be able to do some
I welcome
as far
that,
as
yes.
transportation. So if you're interested,
Definitely.
I'm available for a discussion on that.
Good.
Madam Chair? I just want to thank Mr. Noland for his leadership and energy, frankly. You have me excited over here. You know, when you talk about getting to Chicago faster, I don't think you can overestimate the impact on what that would have on a community like Michigan City right now. It takes us an hour 38 minutes to get downtown. Talk about a game changer is to get to downtown Chicago in 1 hour. And, you know, we immediately become a comp to Naperville in terms of proximity to Chicago. Naperville doesn't have 3 miles of some of the best beaches on Lake Michigan. I mean, this is a huge economic issue for us. We talk about bringing jobs to Michigan City. This brings jobs closer to Michigan City and opens up an emerging market that we've been talking about for a long time. I'm very encouraged by the execution of the Sunrise, and I think you're right, you're getting all kinds of good PR on it, and I'm anxious to see what's next, and look forward to being part of those discussions. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. And what I'm hoping is that what we hear is, what about us? Where's our service? Because that's the best news we could ever hear. The Me Too's, bring them as loudly as you can, because that's going to support our need. We need to generate that kind of enthusiasm for the investment.
Madam Chair, looking at Mr. Murphy's question, I'm Potawatomi Park. We call ourselves a suburb of Michigan City. Quite frankly, we're within walking distance of your Carroll Street. Okay, so it's very advantageous for us. What kind of advertising are you going to use to get the populace of Chicago aware of this new service and make them aware that they can now look at opportunities to live out into Michigan City, Potawatomi Park, South Bend? Do you have a program in mind that's going to notify the people about this? And then one other quick question. The Sunrise Express does not stop in Michigan City. The 60 minutes is just the 106 train, right?
Well, the 60 minutes is the goal. The 106, we shaved off about 6 minutes off the schedule. I think we're at about an hour and 30 or so right now. The goal, 60 minutes is the goal.
Oh, okay.
That's where we want to get to. We have a marketing firm. The board approved at the January meeting an increase to that marketing budget specifically to try to attract riders onto that train. We're going to target mostly, we're going to put most of those dollars into attracting ridership from the region. These are rush hour trains into the city for the job growth. We do, though, need to get the word out to those folks downtown Chicago. We need a connection with, we need to work with the development community and the real estate community, because it can't just be us. This message has to get out there loudly that we're improving the service and that you need to come take a look at how quickly now or quicker that you can get from Dune Park to downtown Chicago. Or East Chicago service went from 44 minutes on the train down to 35 minutes. That's it. That is, there's no way you can get in your car from East Chicago and get to the city of Chicago in 35 minutes. And certainly not for the price of the ticket. So that's making that area extremely attractive.
Talking about a train ticket.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, we need to.
So there will be.
There's going to be a marketing effort there. Yeah.
In the discussion, you brought up engaging the communities and counties for possibly some for some cost sharing. If I looked at the brochure, it looked like you had a little under $1 billion of investment to make projected. You spoke to the engineering. Are you looking to us to help pay for engineering or part of that cost? Or
Eventually, yes. Today, no. At some point, in order to make these capital improvements, there's going to have to be a discussion of where we're going to get the funding, and certainly the state will play a part. I would have liked to have said to you that we would have our own bonding capacity to play that part, but what I haven't talked about is on one of the main things on my radar screen right now is positive train control. The federal government mandated that all railroads in the country by December 31st of this year implement a system called positive train control. It's a satellite-based technology system that will override an engineer's failure to take a particular action. There's been some high-profile accidents where engineers, I had 2 of them when I was over at Metro in Chicago, where an engineer approached a 10-mile-an-hour zone at 70 miles an hour and didn't slow down, and the train derailed. Positive train control, if the engineer doesn't take the appropriate actions, theoretically, it's this system that's never been implemented before, will take over the train and slow it down. The federal government mandated all railroads in the country have this in place by 1/1/15. They did it in 2008. The technology doesn't exist. It has to be interoperable, which means my train has to talk to a Conrail train or a Conrail CN train or an NS train or a CSX train. Everything has to be intertwined, and it will not be in place by 1/1/16. There's just nobody, maybe one railroad in the country will have it fully functional on that date. So it's going to push it back, but the price tag, our engineers estimated it would cost us $40 million. Our first bid came in for this last April at $125 million. It's going to take every penny of bonding authority that we have on the railroad to pay for that. So in order to, I mentioned that because in order for us to go forward with these improvements, I don't see any bonding capacity that we're going to have available to us. If we want to do this, if we want this schedule, we're going to have to come up with some kind of funding mechanism in order to get it done. And we'll certainly be talking to the state, and there'll hopefully be a federal component, but there's going to have to be some kind of local piece, I envision, that's going to provide us with the ability to do this. And I'm not a very patient person. I want to do this now. The strategic plan's a 20-year plan. I'm hoping we do it a heck of a lot faster. So that would mean we'd have to generate some source in the not too distant future.
I'm glad you got to the other explanation, because that was really the heart of my question is your bonding capacity, the ability, even an analysis of it before you come to the state,
Yeah.
to the locals.
Yeah, we haven't gone to the state or the locals for PTC. The federal government, that's an unfunded mandate. I know that's not new to anybody in this room, but you know, they cast this, and we're not opposed to positive train control. There's systems that we could have put in place on the railroad at a fraction of that cost, but the federal government's spoken, and they have, you know, so we will do it, and it will, if it works properly, it will be a good system for everyone to have. It's just really expensive, and they didn't fund it. They thought it was a great idea, they didn't fund it, so we have to fund it. We're hoping, we have bids coming in, Joe, what, in the next couple weeks or so?
Well, we're out for bid, but I think it'll be June until those bids are in, because
Before they're public, we'll have a sense in a couple weeks when we open those up and we see the stickers on them. And the good thing is that when we went out to bid the first time, only one bidder, a proposer, came to the table, zero competition, which is another outgrowth of the fact that the federal government said do it all at once. The industry is stretched, what industry there was, it didn't exist before that, it's stretched thin. But we think we're going to have possibly up to 4 firms bidding on this. Competition is a good thing. We're hoping it drives down the price, but we'll see.
I just want to make sure that there were no other commissioner questions. But Ms. Jackson, you had a question?
Yes. so glad that you said you wanted to hear from the Me Too and the What About Us groups, because that's my constituency, and we usually are loud and obnoxious, so we'll be on that. But have you researched the cost of making the train car accessible versus the whole station? You know, like you talked about, the stations have problems with the low platforms and the stairs and no ramps and no elevators and no thresholds to roll right into. Have you ever thought about just having an accessible car that you could just roll right into?
That's exactly what we want. What we want in this plan is high-level boarding, which means that you roll right into the train. The low-level boarding not only it inhibits our ability to run the express trains, but it's not accessible. And when it is accessible, it's done through a variety of elevators or lifts. Or the goal is to have the accessibility to go up a ramp and roll right across into the rail car. That's where we need to be. So keep charging. That's,
Oh, don't worry.
I'm not. I'm not.
Are there any other questions?
Just comment. As a board member of South Shore and working with Mike and John, Joe, and all the people at South Shore, this is the next level that they're talking about taking the South Shore to the next level. You know, we've got to where we were since 1972, and when it went into bankruptcy, and they've maintained it, they've done well, done an excellent job. Now it's time to step up and take it to the next level for everybody across our area. So this is what we're trying to do, and you can see Mike's very enthused about it, John is, everybody at the South Shore. And what they don't mention when you talk double tracking and stuff, that you know, once that train goes by your place, there could be 2 freight trains come by too. So you know, it's not exactly a commuter railroad. We do have freight trains too that they got to work around. So that's why the double tracking is so important. So I congratulate everybody that's involved on the management of the South Shore for doing an excellent job.
I just wanted to quickly point out, just it's never been easier to ride the South Shore line. Just since we got the Apple TV employee here, this is the app for the. Actually, you can buy your tickets if you weren't aware of this already and purchase them both on Apple products and Android directly from your phone, just showing your screen to the conductor. So it's extremely easy, extremely convenient, and again, it's never been easier to actually ride. So.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation, and we'll look forward to all of the continued improvements and updates, and look forward to also continuing to work with the South Shore and NICD on this project.
Thank you for having us.
That takes us to my report, and I appreciate everyone's flexibility during February as we had some change in schedule and demands that came up. I mentioned to Ty before we started that there's always been some discussion amongst previous chairs of trying to get out on time, or even if we could get out early. I feel like if we canceled the February meeting, that's got to give me some minutes in the bank. That's how that works. But we were able to accomplish a little bit more work on a project that we've been addressing since last year, and I'm going to go ahead and pass these graphics around both sides. Hopefully folks had an opportunity to take a look at the email that Mary was gracious enough to send out, a couple of emails Mary was gracious enough to send out on my behalf to the full commission to address some of the process that we're using with our committee structure and some of our organizational flow. And what you'll see here is, as you'll see listed there, as a draft of what we've put together that, just to quickly recap some of the efforts that have gone on of the history here, that we really started digging into this probably late last spring, I believe it was, that we took a look at all of the committees that we have in place, and When I say we, it was the staff and I, as well as Nancy Adams was involved in it at the time, was our sort of ad hoc committee on committees, and tried to then say what function are each of these committees serving, and are we appropriately aligning ourselves for the most efficient and effective processes and communication and decision-making that's all transparent and understandable for everyone involved. And so we broke out what was the Council of Government roles, as well as the Metropolitan Planning Organization, or MPO, roles, and then tried to put together a type of flow chart that I think maybe it's a little bit of some of my military background, that I think in hierarchy and in typical organization charts, and I was really glad to have some of the help that afterwards with the staff to think about this in maybe a little different framework. And so as the conversation has evolved, then we've developed what you see before you, that you'll still see the three different groups on the right-hand side of the Council of Governments, with the Legislative Committee and then the Local Government Assistance Committee, and then Finance and Personnel really serves more of an administrative function for NERC as a whole. And then in the blue shaded areas, you see the committees that are associated with the Metropolitan Planning Organization roles. And as we talked a little bit about how the money flows through NERC, and for folks to be able to have an easier access to understand, and be able to follow the money throughout the process, then we wanted to create a diagram that shows how that process works and depicts, I think, for the commissioners as well, how that process is going to work. That there have been there's been great work done in these committees, and then there was, I think, a sort of different system amongst the Group 1 and Group 2 organizations as to how they were meeting to come to a consensus on how projects move forward. And so what I shared in the email is that our system is certainly not broken, that it's been very functional, but we just wanted to refine it so that we can showcase the process that everybody is utilizing. And so what this diagram depicts overall is that you'll see on the first layer, the furthest out, if you imagine an arrow kind of starting from right here and moving inward to an ultimate decision being made by the commission overall, the projects would originate within what we call the Transportation Finance Committee. And that would actually be two different groups of Group 1 and Group 2. Group 1 being made up of Lake and Porter counties, and then Group 2 being made up of LaPorte County, the requirements being because of different levels of population and different demographics that are involved there. And not just because LaPorte's awesome. But that there would actually be a division of Group 1 and Group 2. And that's where you have discussion about your projects that are being submitted for STP money, for HSIP, for CMAQ funding, for transportation alternatives, programs of TAP money. So all of those would originate in that column, or in that section there. And those groups are made up of commission members that then are present at the discussion. So those are the stakeholders then that are involved with the projects themselves, that depending on the required match, they're the ones that are going to have skin in the game for the specific projects that are going to be submitted forward. Then in the lighter shade of blue here, you'll see what we were referring to as topical committees of the Environmental Management Policy Committee, or EMPC, PED, Pedal and Paddle, Land Use, Rail Vision and Freight, the Transit Operators, and then Surface Transportation. And surface transportation is new, that as we were looking at these different groups and trying to address all of the different modes of transportation, we saw that there were sort of some ad hoc groups. I think Rail Vision and Freight has met on an ad hoc basis, but we wanted to insert more regularity for these different modes of transportation. And what these topical committees will do is that some of the more active ones, like EMPCE and PED, Pedal and Paddle, have been made up of practitioners of this particular field. So you'll have people that are involved in sort of the academic area of this, people that are involved in nonprofits that practice these different, or utilize these different modes of transportation, and different areas. And so we wanted to incorporate some of that experience and knowledge into the process to then be able to weigh in on the different projects that are being submitted, but in a way that provides value for the decision makers, but it's not necessarily a binding review. So they would then, all the projects will get submitted through the Transportation Finance Committees, then submitted then to a respective topical committee that addresses the particular area that the project would apply to. And then they provide some insight and background on that project and how it may impact the area, to then just provide more knowledge for then what would be the Technical Planning Committee. And then the Technical Planning Committee is designed to be a function of basically what's been the TPC and then incorporating what the 2040 Implementation Committee has been working towards as well. The 2040 vision calls for the creation of at least a committee to address implementation of the plan overall. The concept with having the Technical Planning Committee is to actually incorporate that into our funding decisions, as opposed to having a set-aside committee that's looking at these that may not necessarily make the decisions on a funding basis. And so it brings that process directly into any of our funding choices that we're making. There is still some discussion to be had on how that Technical Planning Committee is made up and who the voting members of that would be. That I know there's been some conversations about how TPC is made up and who are the voting members, that some of the communities that have transit services are able to have the transit operators have a vote. But if you're a community that doesn't have a transit system, then is that a potential detriment to your community, because then you may not have a vote that's requisite to another community that does have a transit system, that they could theoretically stack the deck if they are bringing in some of their representation there. So there's still some discussion that I think needs to be had on how that voting structure would be made up. But that kind of gives you the overall flavor, that it doesn't really change the process that we've utilized. It just adds some structure to what has happened and how decisions have been made, so it's clear what the path is for any project and how the money flows throughout the NERC system. At this point, hopefully that's a little clearer than mud. And if there are suggestions or questions about this structure, then I'm happy to answer what I can at this point. I really want to thank the staff that's been very helpful in this, particularly Gary Evers and Kathy Luther, that have helped put together this diagram. We've had a lot of influence and conversation throughout from many members of the staff, that Mitch has been involved as well. And so thank you to everybody that's been a part of this discussion. It's been very helpful. And so are there any questions at this point from anyone? Yes.
Madam President, first, I'm going to offer some comments. I want to give a context. I think this is an incredible amount of heavy lifting, and I commend you and everybody who had a hand in it. It's imaginative, and I think it's something that we needed. I don't think that there was enough guidance on, not all the committees, because some of the committees it's very clear. Finance Personnel Committee, by its title, is fairly clear. But I do think that this will also help us to define authority. How much of this will be binding and how much won't? And that will go to looking at our other rules about composition of these committees, if they're going to be entirely populated by commissioners or not. I take all that. I'm not sure we're ready for that today, but I want to keep that in mind. I like all of it. My only comment then is twofold. One, I'd like to better understand the outreach committee. And secondly, this still is, in my opinion, missing out on, and I understand why, it's because our financial structure has never been aligned with our statutory mission. Since, I say this all the time, since July of 2003, when the new legislation has currently enabled our structure by and large, we've had three mission areas. The usual area of transportation, which I believe we do really well. And we have a lot of core skill sets in that and competencies in that. The second area is environment. And what's happened for us in terms of environment is we've just been imaginative to take the transportation monies that required some element of studies on that And we've been able to do a fairly good job without having a funding mechanism that directly address that. I think I have that right. Lastly has been economic development. And to the extent that transportation has a handle on it, we're doing it. But we're trying to develop a new economic development area. But apart from that, there has been no funding mechanism or no grant structure that's currently available to us that really makes that be fully realized, it seems to me. All we're doing is essentially trying our very best to sort of imaginatively, not creatively, because I think it's pejorative, imaginatively use our financial resources to do what we can, but that's stressing in a lot of ways what is essentially transportation planning money. So we do need to talk about that. Maybe that's for another day. But I do believe that there can be growth here. But I just want to say that to me, there seems to be an omission for the economic development component, but I understand why.
There's not a lot to add to that other than to underscore, totally agree with that comment. And I don't want to take words from Mr. Allen, who chairs the district committee. But as we move forward in trying to figure out how that functions, part of that discussion is where does that best get sustained? Right now it's a separate nonprofit, but part of those discussions as we try to move ahead as we receive grant money is how does that get grafted into NERC better? So I'm totally in sync with what you're saying.
Well, and I agree, and I think that maybe I'd like to sit down with you, especially because of your role with the 2040 Implementation Committee, to talk a little bit about some of your thoughts with that technical planning committee and how we incorporate some of the work that's been done with the 2040 Implementation Group and how that then manifests itself with the
This has historically been the TBC's really been the Transportation Planning Committee, though, has it not been, or am I mistaken about that? So this is actually, I think this is a really new way to envision it. It broadens its scope, the 2040 Committee, but it also raises the issue when the committee members wanted to offer an advisory comment with regard to the Ileana vote. It had largely been done for transportation because of funding. We didn't think there was any harm in it, but it wasn't clear what our charter or what our writ of authority was. And I was concerned because the membership had been so broadened because we really wanted to draw from a lot of people who had passions about that. So I think the composition was correct, but it was fairly fluid. So if a vote had come out of there, was it a valid vote? How representative would it be? So those are the kinds of things that we probably need to talk about in terms of hard structure and composition. But I think this is a great idea. I actually commend you. And when I first saw that and I read some of the notes about it, I thought that was an excellent idea.
Well, appreciate that. And to your question about the outreach committee, we listed it as such that it spans the breadth of the process for project start to decision as it heads to the full commission, so that then I guess I see the outreach committee as being a two-direction type of group, that they're making sure that information is being shared with the public throughout the duration of a project's lifetime, as well as receiving that information throughout the process from the public of any questions on a specific project, and trying to be intentional about that communication. And that's why there is then that specific call for the outreach committee that I believe its impetus was born from primarily the public participation plans. So that then NERC is then showing a clear intention that not that we were ever trying to not be transparent, but now we're trying to work even harder to make sure that any information is shared throughout the duration of a project's lifespan. A couple other pieces that I was remiss in mentioning as we talk about some of these topical committees, and as you mentioned, some of what we've done in the environmental area, that I think EMPC has been one of those committees that has done a really great job of trying to be imaginative in some of the roles that they can take on and play or have a greater presence across Northwest Indiana. And so they've done some unique things with trying to go after some different funding mechanisms. And this process is not designed to circumvent or to decrease any of that initiative. So If there are things that are specific to the EMPC that then they want to continue to put forward, then they can continue to function in that capacity. Transit Operators Roundtable would be another example of that they get funding through PMTF, that they sort of administer or oversee, then they'll continue to do that without having to necessarily change the flow and the efficiency of how that money gets administered. So we're not looking to bog down any processes that are able to function in a much quicker manner because they're really more administrative than they are any sort of decision-making capacity. So those things are happening. There's something else I was going to mention that you brought up too. Now I've forgotten, but maybe it'll come to me in just a minute.
Madam Chair, in reference to the Northwest Indiana Economic Development District, I would like to say that we are continually striving to make an effort to become autonomous financially. There has been some inflow of revenue from the EDA in the form of 2 planning grants. Although we are in the process of attempting to get an operational grant, we did hire a new director, Matt Roof, and he has been interacting with the Economic Development Administration over in Chicago, and hopefully we will be successful probably this year. He's been interacting not only over in Chicago, but the Indiana Economic Development Corporation in Indianapolis and with the governor. So we're trying to accelerate the process now, and hopefully his company may have some additional networking influence as far as the EDA is concerned. EDA, as everybody knows, is extremely hard to, it's a very difficult agency to deal with, but we're still hopeful that we can make some additional progress. As Ty mentioned, we're a separate not-for-profit organization from NERC, and the EDA is requiring us to become more and more autonomous from the government. Our board members are selected independently now by the EDA board, which was a requirement from the EDA. And so hopefully we'll get this additional money, and then we will be able to, we are carrying out our function as required by the EDA, which is the maintenance of the SEDS, Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. And all of our SEDS have been approved by the EDA. It's just a matter of moving over we're right at the tipping point. It's a matter of moving over that tipping point. And then I think everything will flow very well.
Thank you very much. And that was very helpful that I also then in the meantime was able to remember the other item that I was going to mention of that the Transportation Finance Committee, what has happened with the different Group 1 and Group 2 groups have been that they've met on an as-needed basis when there's a call for projects. And the concept now with them, with the 2 structures would be that they would meet maybe on a quarterly basis. And certainly quarterly could be adjusted, but wanted to have a regularly scheduled basis that they would meet so that then they're not just submitting projects and it's just a fire and forget, that you're actually following through on the progress of these different projects throughout their duration of not just the time through the decision-making process in NERC, but also as they're then being carried out and monitoring that they continue to stay on time and on cost. And if there ends up being any sort of cost changes, that group is aware throughout the process of any sort of change orders that are coming up, so that then if they need to prepare for any changes in project cost structure, then they can address that and nobody's necessarily surprised at the end if there are changes and then they have to restructure some of the funding there. And I think that this is something that, that INDOT has been interested in seeing, and that's what we've seen in some of the correspondence that we've gotten from INDOT recently, is making sure that we're continuing to follow up on our projects throughout. This creates a function for us to regularly follow up on the progress of those particular projects. Mr. Benson.
I was going to say that in some of our conversations that everywhere where there's a dollar sign, and obviously the executive board and commissioners, that's where we get to make decisions on money. And so as you had said, everyone would be welcome to participate in those big blue things with money, and so that we're accountable, transparent, and available to learn about the projects, monitor them, vote on them, submit them, etc. And I also commend your work. It's great.
Are there any other questions or comments from commissioners? Ms. Jackson, did you have a question?
Yes. Am I to understand that on the chart, the public participation plan is in with the outreach committee?
That would be its primary function, is making sure that it's incorporated with the outreach committee.
Okay, it might be nice to, show that public participation is with that. Usually out of sight, out of mind, or if somebody does not see it, they won't recognize that we're included.
Sure. Well, we can draw attention to that. I think that any of these other committees are not intended to exclude any kind of public participation. Certainly that's welcome throughout, and that's something that's just kind of inherent with NERC's function, but we can certainly include an aspect that says that the outreach committee is really born from the public participation plan specifically. All right, then. Gary?
Could I say a word?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Member. Moving money around left and right for the last dozen or so years. I'm hopeful that this structure will give us what we need in terms of a structure and transparency, and we'll be able to have a process at long last, so that when, for instance, Chesterton came to me last year and said, we need 30,000 more for our signal project, there's a process for them to follow rather than just relying upon me to say yes or no. And so it means me relinquishing some of what I've been doing, and it's gladly. My last situation I dealt with was $1 million, 1.2 million additional funding for a project in Merrillville. So these things come along, and I'm really looking forward to you all helping out in helping us make those decisions. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. And thanks so much for all of your assistance throughout this process. Well, as I mentioned, I don't want to be making any of these decisions in a vacuum, and so I appreciate any feedback that commissioners have on the process, or any commentary, recommendations that you would have on structural changes, voting members, things like that. The overall goal that I have is to be as inclusive as possible, while also not making any of our groups so large that they're unwieldy and unproductive. So that's kind of the framework that I'm operating under. And my goal is to then have a submission to, I believe the next full commission meeting is going to be in May. And so in May, I'd like to be able to have everyone address this and be able to adopt then the structure and be able to move forward. In the interim, we'll continue to operate as we have been with, there's not a whole lot of change from how we're doing business. This just formalizes some of the structure with it, so we'll continue to move in that capacity. And I encourage folks to continue to be involved in your respective committees that you participated in. So thank you very much for the feedback. At this point then, I'm going to turn to Ty, and he can give his executive director's report.
And I'll be very brief. This is a bit of an experiment, so we've got somewhat of an outline on the screen here. National Association of Regional Councils. There we are, our Senate Office building, a very merry troop traipsing around the hill. And there's everything in action. Look at that, all around the hill in process, spreading the NERC message, including Dave Schaefer, who was able to join us. So just a quick summary of that. Let me give kind of at least one of the main messages from that, and then also those, Bob, Blair, Jeff, who were on the trip as well, if you want to add some impressions and comments. A big topic was of course, the gas tax, or Highway Trust Fund, or I should say lack of a solution to actually continue to fund the Highway Trust Fund, which expires in the fall if nothing more is done. And the short message there is, I think it's fair to say, everyone acknowledges this is a huge problem. And as we've talked about before, though, nobody has rallied around a solution. There was a representative from AASHTO, which is the Society of Transportation and Highway Officials, at this conference listed, I think it was 38 technically feasible solutions to try to fund the Highway Trust Fund, but the only one that seems to have the immediacy that could be enacted almost tomorrow and help address the issue is increase in the gas tax. And of course, raising taxes is extremely unpopular. And while I don't want to implicate anyone, I could safely say, not just from our own folks that we talk to, but from talking to other regional councils and the National Association of Regional Councils, basically other representatives and whatnot recognize that that's the way to go, but nobody, and I understand it, nobody wants to be carrying the flag to say we need to raise taxes. In fact, the message is often, frankly, I'm supportive, but I'll be supportive when everybody else is supportive. I'm not sure how else to say that delicately, but it's just it's a tough situation. Obviously, we're facing a huge crisis, and again, the message is that there hasn't been a solution that people have been able to rally around as yet, but that one is the most expedient. So that was our message to folks, is just to underscore the importance of this. In fact, I think, Bob, did you see in the paper that morning there had been a piece of bridge that fell on somebody's car in DC just that very morning. So that was very effective to be able to use that story as we traced around to our representative of how immediate this crisis is. So I don't know, Jeff, Blair, Bob.
Well, I took some notes.
Can I just say, Bob is I had no idea, but he is a supreme note taker. These are worthy of graduate level class.
It just proves that I made some of the sessions instead of running around watching them. I'm actually there. Just a couple of bullet points, and the big ticket item I got out of this is if you want anything done within the region, you got to do it yourself, because there's less and less influence and money coming in from the federal government and the state government. So local economies, local regions are going to have to do it themselves. Define, finance, and deliver was the message. Ray LaHood, former transportation secretary, started out saying America is one big pothole, and his message was raise the gas tax to fix all that stuff. Commenting on Commissioner Allen's EDA comments, Jay Williams spoke to us and indicated that they are increasing the budget by $20 million, and they're updating their SEDS guidelines. And they support the Renaissance of America, which will take place in manufacturing. So they are looking to help regional economies. So I think that bodes well for your committee. Talked about the Workforce Investment Act. I serve on the local workforce board, so that was good to hear the comments from Portia Wu. I will be attending the National Association of Workforce Boards in a couple of weeks, so I think she's going to be speaking there as well. So all the sessions kind of said that you got to work on stuff yourselves, and that requires partnerships with all the other agencies and organizations that we can take advantage of. So I found a lot of value by going to the conference.
Go ahead.
I just want to say, Commissioner Decker is not here right now, but I just want to say that the collaborative effort by LaPorte County and Lake County, we were trying to do just that. It was a regional effort when we were trying to purchase the remaining lease on the Indiana Toll Road. We were the second highest bidder, It started out with 8 competitors, and it was narrowed down to 4. And we were the second highest. We had what we feel was the better package. The process is still ongoing. It's not complete yet. It won't be complete until about September 1st. If the highest bidder cannot sell their debt in the market, then it comes back to LaPorte and Lake County. If we are successful in our endeavors, we will provide tremendous revenue for Lake and Porter counties without increasing the tax obligation to the taxpayers, because the increase in revenue would come from the surplus revenues that are generated by the Indiana Toll Road, and also the surplus revenue would come from the founder's fee, $5 million founder fee that each county would get up front every year for 67 years. So that's an indication of how innovative local government can be, and I can't imagine any other endeavor, at least since I've been a county commissioner, where 2 counties came together and entered into an interlocal agreement and developed a P3 6329 profit public benefit corporation to, and we were going to hire the second largest operator of infrastructure operator in the world, which was Global Via, to operate the toll roads. We were creating a capital reserve fund and maintenance reserve fund to ensure that the toll road would be brought up to standards as far as renovation, reconstruction. That would have been our primary goal in the first 7 years. So just keep your fingers crossed. If this company can't deliver, then we're next in line. And then we will be able to help all of the 7 counties along the toll road by the upkeep and maintenance of the toll road. So I'm very proud of LaPorte County and Lake County for having the fortitude to, and the investment from the 2 counties was $10,000 per county. All of the other money was sponsored by the financial underwriter, which was Bank of America Merrill Lynch, and that was in upwards of $1 million that they spent to put together the package. So that gives you an indication of how much confidence they had in LaPorte and Lake County to expend that outlay of money up front. And so the process is still going on, and just keep your fingers crossed. And if you have any friends down at the IFA, down at the state, give them a call or send them a letter or something to encourage them to support us.
And I appreciate the comments on that. Just to follow up with some of the discussion about the DC trip, we did have, just as Ty mentioned, good discussions with all of our congressional delegation, and appreciated the commentary. I think that it's also important that we represent some of the discussion and concerns that were expressed, that of feedback, not just because it's politically difficult to have the discussion about an increase in taxes, but also the feedback that members have gotten from constituents about, that we funded the Highway Trust Fund in different capacities, and then those funds have gone towards putting decorative pieces in some of the federal highway system, and to creating museums that have recognized transportation initiatives throughout history. And so they get feedback from some of the constituents on, why don't you use the money that is set aside for highways appropriately first before we then try and raise the funds. And I think that's an important discussion, and they're not necessarily wrong on that. The challenge still exists, though, that even if you remove all of those different types of projects, that doesn't get us to where we need to be as far as the funding required for the infrastructure improvements across not just Indiana, but I mean the country that really exists, and why we're at the point that in May of this year, the Highway Trust Fund is no longer solvent. So just want to make sure that there's some of that information that's shared as well. So there was really great discussion about not just that option of increasing the tax with the gas tax, but also looking at user fees, and so discussion about toll roads and vehicle miles traveled, but then that also brings about the question of infrastructure to be able to capture what those vehicle miles traveled are and what's palatable to the citizenry for how that kind of technology might manifest itself, and then how you appropriately capture the revenue. How do you address, as if gas efficiency and energy efficiency is coming forward with some of the newer vehicles, how do you address the wear and tear on the roads of an electric vehicle that doesn't utilize as much gas but still has the same wear and tear on a roadway? So there was a lot of conversation about how to address those kinds of items in the future, but just as Ty mentioned, that group has represented, that the need is so great that the only way that has been shown so far in order to get us to where we need to be, or even close to where we need to be for infrastructure upkeep and improvement costs, is going to be through increasing the gas tax, which hasn't been adjusted since, what was it, 93?
Yeah, it's been a long time.
So, and if there was an ability to just factor it so that it was incremental, the net index, that's the word I was looking for, thank you. But if it was indexed, then that could have appropriately and gradually addressed the need throughout. So that's something that maybe could be taken on in the future.
There's something else that's added in statement. Indiana is a donor state. We contribute more than we get back. And so if there was some type of way or effort to change the formula, and so we could get more of the revenue back that we are contributing, that would help our state tremendously.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up. That was another point that was discussed by the delegation as well. Jeff, did you have anything good?
Yeah, a couple of things. I had the honor of chairing 2 sessions while there, one on the environment and another one on the water. And the federal government has started a program like TIFIA, but it's called WIFIA. But so far, all they've done is fund the project, not put money in it to loan anybody yet. So, but keep your eyes on it. The other thing that I would mention very quickly is that what was communicated to us from our congressional members was the importance of us contacting them to let them know our thoughts. So we were there in Washington talking to them face to face, but it was mentioned that when they are discussing the gas tax, they get 200 phone calls a day saying, don't raise the gas tax. And that's not very many phone calls, really. And so if that is swaying their vote, then what we need to do is remember that we need to call them and say, we need the gas tax, index it when they're discussing it. So the importance of whether you're for it or against it, talk to your congressman, lobby, weigh in and get your constituents to it, because that's how we're going to get things done.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
On this issue, Oregon is interesting because they seem to be a lot more experimental about what they want to do. And they've early on decided that the problem is they've got 2 competing dynamics that are in opposition. One is they want to fund highways and do a good job. At the same time, they want to promote environmentally correct vehicles that lower the carbon footprint. And so they're taxing it's kind of like when we tax cigarettes. I love to say this in a public finance class. We tax cigarettes as an encouragement to get you off of them, but the money is so good. We kind of hope you'll still smoke because it really generates some money. Exactly. So it's the irony of that. But they're experimenting with, they're basically saying that perhaps the model that ought to be used is a user fee. That the economic model is that roads are technically, small t, toll goods in the economic matrix of 4 goods, and that they're successful with that. And you don't have to have a lot of technology. They're investing in technology to help it so that at the point of sale they can actually do it. But there's a simple way to do it. In the same way that we have people who have to file an income tax, everybody has to register their vehicle. All they have to do is do their odometer miles at the time that they register. And at the end of the year, they got to say what they are. And then you either use a withholding against other taxes that they pay, or you bill them and allow them to do it in quarterly increments. Oregon found that I think it's 1.5 cents, which is vastly less than they were paying. It's like 15 cents they were having per gallon as their gas tax. They went to 1.5 cents per mile, and they were stunned at the yields. They were very good. So that's just something to consider. And I'm not sure we could even do this. This is where I get really radical, but I think we could do it. User fees can be done under the home rule statute right now. And you could actually get a deal with the, maybe you could. There's not a legal barrier, there may be a barrier of will. You could get the BMV commissioner to consent to collect it for you by just saying, we're going to pass a home rule ordinance, we're going to have an interlocal cooperation agreement to do that, and we're going to ask you to collect it. Now, how much do you need to collect it for us, which is perfectly within the law right now. You don't need the legislature to do another thing. Now, we're probably going to get sued because, we're being inventive about this sort of thing, but I think it's winnable because it is the perfect user fee. Because we're saying mileage is a perfect surrogate for utilization. It represents a metric for wear and for enjoyment. And it doesn't hurt the people who just get gas for their lawnmowers who don't bring them on the highway. And farmers get better off because they're not really riding the farm implements there and paying toward a tax that arguably they're not getting as much utilization value as a driver of a car. There's a lot of ways to commend it, but I understand it's a little Pollyanna, but I don't think it's that. I'm willing to try that. I've said my piece.
We got to do something.
Yeah, exactly. Because what I heard from my colleague commissioner is that we can't count on the federal government right now for that. The state, I think, is similarly disposed. So they allow us to be experimental at least. I guess I am.
Our state plates.
Yeah, let me go really quickly. Just we have things to vote on, but I just wanted to mention too, we had great representation at the Purdue Road School, which is broadening over the years. Now they switched the title. They still call it Road School because it's what it's been known, but it's now more particularly the Transportation Conference, which is reflective of the broader issues. Kevin was there as well. And we had just some really good sessions from nursing staff. Kathy presented on red flag environmental analysis, Mitch on bike and ped solutions, and Sarah and Gabrielle from our staff on our Creating Livable Centers program. And then Blair was one of the keynote presenters, and I just wanted to highlight her. It's not a great photo, but she actually incorporated slides from the 2040 plan and about our implementation before the entire crowd of, I don't know how many hundreds were in the 2,500. And so it was really, really good, and just appreciated your comments and very good publicity for NERC's plan as an example of folks that are walking and talking and trying to implement what we can adjust. So
I think all those people deserve a hand.
I think so too. In fact, lest you feel too alone, this may have just gone off. Might have. Well, this was an experiment. Sorry.
Oh, there you go.
Sorry. I was going to show you the nice video. If you think you're alone in the calisthenics before she had the entire auditorium of 2,500 people doing arm circles. It's a great video that I'll try to play it. Just very, very quickly, let me barrel through because we have to vote on some items. The building status, the day after the last commission meeting, we had a meeting with the folks involved in the build-out program, and the timetable was revised. So I did not lie intentionally to you last commission. I said this would be a instruction. Right, but we are kind of in a whole pattern of trying to work out some of the finances involved in some of the situations that have arisen. So bottom line is that just remain in the auditorium until further notice. We'll keep you posted. Is that, I'm sorry?
We leave today.
What?
You said remain in the auditorium.
Oh, right. Thank you, Jeff, for taking care, right? Don't move. No.
Everybody else can, not you.
Yeah.
At some point, you'll go home.
That's great. That's great. May, because of the cycle we are on for our 2040 Comprehensive Regional Plan update, it's not one of the things that's required to have a full commission vote, but we would like to get the full commission to approve the updates. So therefore, typically we've done, I think, an April full commission meeting. We're planning on a May full commission meeting, so that April will be an executive board meeting. Having talked about the 2040 update meetings you have at all your places, the schedule of public meetings, there's one tonight in Michigan City that I'll be at, and you can look at the other dates for other times. Would highly encourage you to drop in and be there for some of those. You have those in front of you, and they're on our website for those that are watching on what they're recording. Lastly, I just want you to watch your inboxes. We'll be sending information in the very near future on a local food summit in conjunction with Purdue that will be held on April 24th, and we'll be sending you the registration. I'm losing my ability to talk at this hour, apparently. We'll be sending you registration materials on that. So that's all I've got on my report. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't. That's not all I have in the report. There's actually that. Let me give let's say just a few words, and I hope Alan hasn't left the room in the course of all this. Thanks. Alan, that's the sharpest I've ever seen you dressed. That's great. A lot of you. Just a reflection on Alan, who's just busy. He's just busy. Alan, a lot of you have worked with Alan through whether it's the ADA transition plans or situations with our transit system. He often gets called Uncle Al because he is literally out when we have buses to dispose of from our transit operators, and when NERCIT becomes the used bus lot out here, he's out to wheel and deal. Not really, just good kids, but he's there to at least work that all out. And consistently, I get comments from other staff on how helpful and above and beyond Alan goes. Everything from setting up the sound system in here to you name it, he's always ready to do it and willing to do it with a smile. So not only has staff acknowledged that, but as is our tradition too, when we hit milestones, Alan has reached his 10-year anniversary. So just want to say a word of appreciation for Alan and congratulations.
All right, then that takes us to the Finance and Personnel Committee report. And I'll turn to Commissioner Allen.
Thank you. Finance and Personnel Committee met this morning at 8 a.m. And during our committee meeting, we reviewed the financial status and the register of claims. We reviewed the budget to actual, the cash variance for the first 2 months of this year. And also the expenditures from the general fund for the first 2 months of this year. There were no cash issues. We also, it was also indicated that the year-end reports have been completed and entered into the state's gateway system. The primary items at our meeting today were 2 contracts. And the contracts were recommended by the Finance Committee to be approved by the Executive Board. And the first contract is on page, I think it's on page 9. Page 11. Page 11. And that contract is a contract between NERCIT and the Kankakee River Basin Commission. It's an annual agreement that we enter into with the Kankakee River Basin Commission to provide general services to that commission, general administrative services, office space and furnishings for their use, financial management assistance for and other incidental services for that organization. And I would, at this time, like to entertain a motion to approve the agreement between NERCIT and the Kankakee River Basin Commission. You have for the provisions of the general service.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Are there any comments or discussion? All those in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? That is approved.
Okay, the second important item is an agreement between the Northwest Indiana Regional Planning Commission and the South Shore Clean Cities for the provision of professional education and training services. This is a public-private partnership, a P3 partnership that has been found eligible for CMAQ support and funding. And it's an agreement where the South Shore Clean Cities will provide a professional and technical education to train the fleet operators within Lake, Porter, and LaPorte counties. The $92,500 of that of the money would come from the federal government, and South Shore Clean Cities, they will provide a non-federal matching fund amount of approximately $23,125. So I want to submit that to the executive board for approval also, Madam Chair.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any questions, comments, discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? And that is approved.
Thank you. That concludes the report of the Finance Committee.
Thank you very much. That takes us to Environmental Management and Policy Committee. Turn to Mr. Benson.
All I'd say is it's a consent agenda, and the minutes are in there, and you're able to read them at your leisure.
All right. Thank you very much. And next up is the Legislative Committee. Mayor McDermott is not able, excuse me, is not able to be with us today. Is there somebody who is able to speak on behalf of any discussion that happened in the last Legislative Committee?
The last one was actually canceled.
Okay.
So.
Easy enough. Or maybe they're so functional that they just
Maybe.
got so much done. All right, then that takes us to the Transportation Policy Committee, and I'll turn to Mr. Billups.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Transportation Policy Committee met on March 17th. The committee heard a presentation from Rick Hyman, who is the director of Burns Harbor Port of Indiana facility. Mr. Hyman spoke about the port and how it functions as an economic engine to our region. He also highlighted the fact that 2014 represented the best year of production at the port since it opened in 1970. A copy of this full presentation can be found on the NERPC website, www.nerpc.org. The draft 2040 Comprehensive Regional Plan Update Companion is now out for public review until April 10th. The draft plan, as well as the schedule for public meetings, is the NERPC region can be found on the NERPC website also. We have 3 actions for consideration today. The first action is adoption of Resolution 15-07, which is located on pages 27 and 29, the 34th Amendment to the fiscal year 2014-2017 Transportation Improvement Program. Melinda Petrosky will discuss this amendment.
I can disguise it too. Make up stuff about this all day long.
Maybe I'm saying something.
Joe might get a little upset over there, but yeah. These 4 projects have been out there for a while now. We didn't get any public comments on any of them when we did the shortened version of our comment period review of 7 days, and that was 2 months ago. But we've left them up on the website, and no one has had anything to say. They're fairly cut and dried stuff. The bike racks for East Chicago are to of course put on their vehicles. Joe, I don't know if you have any comments about the 3 NICTY projects.
No, these are just nuts and bolts type of things, improvements to some of our station facilities that are 15 and 20 years old now, improvements to our shop facilities in Michigan City that have not been rebuilt since the early 1980s. And some track improvements to help us get in and out of Millennium Station a little faster. We only have 1 track now that goes into our tracks, our platforms at Millennium Station. If something happens to that track, then we're stuck. So we want to build a 2nd track, and this is going to start that work. So if there are any questions on the details, I'll be happy to answer.
Any questions?
I would just make a comment too, as far as the new tip that's out there for public review, as Mr. Nolan alluded to earlier, if you look in there, you begin to see the engineering, big engineering projects for some of the improvements he was talking about, and that is different than we've seen before from them. So they're in the new tip. Check it out. That's all. I don't have any more comments on these.
The Policy Committee recommends approval of Resolution 15-07.
Do I have a motion as such?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions, discussion, commentary? Hearing none, all those in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? And that is approved.
Thank you. The second action is the adoption of Resolution 15-08 on pages 30 through 33. The 33rd amendment of the fiscal year 2014-2017 Transportation Improvement Program. Gary Evers will describe this proposed amendment.
These changes are primarily for construction engineering on bridge paving projects that are about to be started later on this summer. There are actually 5 of them. There's a 5th project, preliminary engineering on a bridge on SR 912. This is a bridge that's located just to the east of the East Chicago Casino. There is some work that's being done on the ramps there. Any questions?
Any questions? The committee recommends approval of Resolution 15-08. I move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any questions, comments, discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? That is approved.
Thank you. The final action is the adoption of Resolution 15-09 on pages 34 through 38. The 35th amendment to the fiscal year 2014-2017 Transportation Improvement Program. Gary Evers will describe the proposed amendment.
These are all local projects that utilize the LPA funding that NDOT provides to us. The first project is we're dividing an existing project into multiple phases. This is a grade separation project on 45th Street near the intersection of 45th and Calumet. Town of Munster is realigning 45th to the southwest so that the two ends of the street match up at long last. They're dividing out the grade separation structure from the road project. And those are the numbers that you see here. We are showing the pending project. Actually, we do have a DES number assigned on that one. Both construction activities are scheduled for 2017. The second group of projects is the City of Valparaiso. As part of their relinquishment agreement with NDOT, NDOT provided some funding for improvements to US 30 from Hayes Leonard Road east to SR 49. And you can see here what projects they are incorporating or they will be doing with this funding. There's some landscaping work to be done, some actual intersection improvement with signals at several locations, and finally a shared use path along US 30 generally from Hayes Leonard Road to, I believe it's Silcavy Road, right there at Walmart. For the town of Chesterton, we're adding a right-of-way phase to an existing trail project in the amount that's shown here. And we are adding a Porter County 100 South reconstruction project. This is being funded with dollars from, earmarked dollars from Congress, as well as some STP funds from NDOT under their Group 4 program. And the final change that we're proposing here is in the city of Michigan City, and we are actually deleting a project here. This was a project that was going to run generally along Washington Park Boulevard eastward, wiggling down toward US 12. This funding could not be obligated within the limited amount of time that was left for it to become obligated, and so it's being deleted, and we've picked up funding for a second project elsewhere within Michigan City. Any questions on any of this?
The committee recommends approval of Resolution 15-09.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? And that is adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This concludes my report. The next meeting of Transportation Policy Committee is scheduled for 9 a.m. on April 14th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'll next turn to Mr. Powers from INDOT.
Thank you. Sorry about that phone call. I just took, I was like, sure enough, I'm going to come up on the agenda and I'll be out on the phone. It worked out well, so that's great. I'll try and be brief. I should probably mumble this, but I think we broke winners back. What started as mild turned into, well, I'm new up here, so I guess I would say more average, maybe above average, a little bit in lake effect, right on target as to what we dealt with. So you know we've transitioned from snow fighting to pothole fighting and are doing that right now as we speak in this room. In fact, the day after storm, you probably saw our crews running down 8094 and other state roads and are going, but again, dealing with 5,000 lane miles in 13 counties. Please bear with us. We are on it. We are transitioning and trying to bring equipment back up and along the other duties we have as well. But potholes are on the top of the priority list at this point. Some exciting news on the equipment front, and again, I'll try and be brief, but I was actually excited by this because I frankly had never seen one before. We always deal with this thing called cold mix when they shut down our asphalt plants over the winter. And in some cases, it almost jumps out of a pothole when you put it in. Just because of weather and the conditions and any number of things that you're dealing with when you're doing it. There's a piece of equipment that we actually are going to purchase. It's basically a portable hot plant. And not only a portable hot plant, but allows us to reuse some of our millings and some to the point of, I guess, reclaiming a number of recyclables, shingles, and anything else that has a petroleum byproduct that goes into it that we'll be able to use a semblance of hot mix, if you will, in the winter months and make some more permanent repairs so that you're not driving through a pothole a day after we've hit it with a cold patch. So I'm excited about that when it gets here. It's in the procurement process, but again, I'm pretty excited about that. But again, please bear with us. We are hitting it and hitting it hard. But if you see one that in particular that is causing an issue for us on a state road, please let us know. That being said, the last meeting, which was lively, from my perspective, anyway, from a listening perspective, because I was listening a lot. One of the things that came up often was lighting. So I went back to staff and said, basically, where are we? I knew the main culprit was what was going on with the thefts. I appealed with all of you in some of my former life when I was in local government myself and dealing with enforcement and licensing and those things, that when people have that size copper cable and they show up at a salvage yard, somebody should probably say, where did you get that? That being the issue, we did catch the, we believe, main culprit, and it's done, and that was done in collaboration with the Indiana State Police. Some of our public outreach, which again, I'll introduce someone that has a great deal to do with that, because I don't know if you know it, but our region for INDOT has over 40,000 followers on Facebook. Pretty cool stuff. Twitter, and again, the guy responsible for a great deal of that is back with us now. And I did not have this before when I came here, it was new, but now I have a full-time communication director who is Matt Deitchley, sitting right behind me. And someone once said, what do you attribute this great success in social media to in Northwest Indiana? And someone said 2 words, Matt Deitchley. And he is from the media market. He was formerly with us in a PIO role, and he's now our communication director. And to a previous point that was made here, we want to start to take some of these, because it's a month before I see you again. And oftentimes, as you know, the meeting with me takes place after the meeting here. And you ask me to do things and things of me that quite frankly will get done, but I don't want to wait to come back here to talk about them like I am now. So Matt and I are collaborating to a point of, Matt will probably be publishing a written response to Ty before we meet again, and that he can disseminate to the members here, or anyone who is attending, with the responses from INDOT that you might need that would be, I guess, more urgent than waiting for the next meeting. This being said, on the lighting front, I found good news when I got back, because I didn't really know what I would find, but we pulled over 146,000 feet of wire, giving you an idea of how much wire was pulled from the conduit that has been replaced since that point. And again, with the weather, we had to back off of that a little bit, but now we're adding crews to go back in. That effort has been primarily in the area of 8094, that corridor, 65, Klein Avenue, to include all of the ramps. So we're getting there, and again, bear with us. We're trying to recover from a dastardly deed, and still discovering where some of those things had taken place. But again, some of the more proactive measures that we are trying to do to keep it from happening again are also in place. The cameras, the additional cameras that are coming, we talked about, talking to Indiana State Police. Your awareness, again, is helping tremendously, and we don't believe we've had any further theft. So that being said, I will leave that. The mayor from Gary left, but I don't know if anyone was at the Northern Mayor's Roundtable this last time in Gary, but there was an amazing and very informative and entertaining presentation on Bessie Coleman, who was the first African-American female pilot. And this, we're talking like World War I era. She died very young in an air accident, believe it or not. She actually fell out of a plane. But it was extremely entertaining, and it's very accommodating to be a part of that. So if you missed it, it was fun to be there. And I really enjoyed it. And she was walking out, and I was like, yeah, I'm getting ready to talk good about you. Come back here. And she left it. So I guess she probably thought it'd be more like the last meeting. Said, no, I'm getting away from you, Ray. But I think that being said, there aren't a great deal of other things that I have to offer in that regard, other than what I said. You know that we are turning toward preservation. And we are going to focus. There are projects on the agenda. So we look forward again to being here. And again, thank you for everything you do to offer the input that you have. The mayors that I've met with here recently have been making an effort to get, you have been very accommodating, and I appreciate that as well. It makes for long days traveling through 13 counties and trying to meet with you individually, but we're getting it done. And we'll continue to try. That being said, if I don't know if you want to get with Matt afterwards or whatever, he can give you his contact information. He will be kind of our lead portal for communication and services for this group, and so that we can keep things on track and keep moving forward. That's it.
Thank you very much. Were there any questions or comments for Mr. Powers? Okay. Then appreciate your report and all the diligence and work that your team is doing to address infrastructure here. And so that takes us to Commissioner Allen on the Economic Development District. Did you have anything further than the previous discussion?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that we met on Friday, February 27th, and there is an opening available for a Porter County elected official. Any elected official in Porter County is eligible to sit on the board, and I would like to emphasize that it's to your advantage to sit on the board, because Porter County submits projects to our SEDS. Those projects have to be scored, and it's to your advantage if there's a representative from Porter County to represent Porter County when the projects are being scored. You don't have anyone sitting there, you know. So if there's someone that's interested, an official from Porter County, you can either contact me or you can contact Jody Melton before March 25th. And that's about all. I said some of the earlier report earlier when I was responding to Michael. The next meeting of the Northwest Indiana Economic Development District will be announced. It has been scheduled.
Thank you very much. That takes us then to other business. Does anyone else have anything left? Everybody's been traveling. I want to commend everybody for hanging tough.
Order pizza.
All right, then that actually then takes us to public comment, of which we have one individual who has asked to be able to speak, and that's Ms. Jackson, and she'd like to speak about transportation.
Thank you. Not really. Thank you. Yeah, it's me again. This is directed toward Ty. Back in December at the Transportation Forum in Wicker Park, you agreed to meet with my agency, Everybody Counts, because we had some other issues that our constituencies are concerned about. And we kind of sent out a reminder around February 6th. Your schedule couldn't, meet with us then. You did say that you still were aware of the meeting that we asked for. We sent another reminder in March, but it's almost April and we haven't heard anything. You represent Lake, Porter, and LaPorte County issues, and we represent Lake and Porter County constituents. So it seems like that we could get together and talk about the important issues that concern both of us. I think we displayed back at the forum that we play nicely, we don't bite. We even offered you pizza and we didn't poison you. So, I mean, we can, we can get together, we can talk. It shows a matter of, not ignoring us, because it makes us feel disrespected when we get ignored. And we're kind of like a bad rash. You can't just scratch us, put a little lotion on us and expect us to go away, because we're not. But that's sort of why I wore my t-shirt, make a statement. I found the courage to share my vision, because I'm trying to change my world. So can you kind of meet with us so we can share the vision?
Yeah, I mean, when we talked to Ms. Torres after we were both on Lakeshore Public Media, that was when she asked to have a conversation, and I said I would be glad to talk with her.
Okay.
Well, and I can also speak to, I think Ty is pulled in a lot of different directions, so I don't imagine that there was any intention for there to be any disrespect or slight shown. Just as we've tried to work through the committee structure that you've talked about, I mean, we've gone back and forth any number of times. I'm just trying to get the schedule worked out, and so it's just a challenge of having so many different things, so many spinning plates at any given time. So I would imagine that there's certainly a desire to continue that conversation that's gone on for the past few years, but I can just speak personally that it just gets to be a challenge with the schedule of so many different things happening, and so I don't think that there's anything intentional intended there.
Okay, we're still waiting.
All right, are there any other announcements? All right, then I would entertain a motion